I'm Dave from Noggin Builders, back at you with another at-home experiment with Noggin Builders. All thanks to Virtually Gorton. And this week we're going to be making wall roller coasters. Now they're going to work a lot like a normal roller coaster that you'd go to Six Flags and see. But when we do this, you can think about it much more like a marble run roller coaster if you've done one of those before. It's very, very similar, and you're not getting a lot of traction on the way up, but it's still going to glide down, similar to a roller coaster, not attached to a track like a roller coaster. So for this experiment, you're going to need a few things. Probably the most important thing you're going to need is some wall space. You don't need very much. Right now, the wall behind me is about 4 feet wide and I would say maybe about 9 feet tall. I can't reach that high, so I don't need to use all of the top end of it, but being able to use a good amount of space up and down is going to be really important for this experiment. So you get a wall, or if you don't have a lot of walls accessible, a lot of things are covering them, you can also use just a door. A doorway can be wide enough, can be tall enough, and you can get started that way. So we're going to make some at-home roller coasters. Very excited to see yours. Get your wall space ready. If you're following along with the video or you're just watching this, you're going to do it later. Start thinking about where you're going to plot out your wall coasters. After you have your wall, you're going to need some tracks in order to carry something down the passageway. And what your track is going to be is also going to have to relate to what your passenger is going to be, or what your sphere or ball that's going down the wall coaster. I have lots of different examples of balls that you can use down your wall coaster, big and small. Small end, marbles are excellent. I would probably prefer to use marbles over any of the other things that I'd have because they're small, they're fairly light, but they're a lot heavier than other things at their same size because they're so dense. And because they are so smooth, they're going to go very nicely down any path, and they won't have a lot of friction along the way. As you'll see, friction is going to be the enemy of a lot of your ideas here. I also have a wooden spool ball here that you can use, something like that. A ping pong ball would be on the really big side. So I would definitely need to test this out with my tracks to make sure that my tracks are big enough, or my tubes are going to be big enough, or the cardboard's big enough to actually hold the sphere. If I tried to do it with a grapefruit, sure, I could use it with a grapefruit, but I need to have really wide, very large tracks for that. And then you're going to get your tracks. Now, your tracks can be made out of anything. The most likely thing that I'm going to be building with is going to be a paper towel tube. And they're long. It's kind of like if you were going to make a water slide tube, this is kind of what you would build it out of if you didn't need any water. It's going to hold it in there. It's going to have walls so that it doesn't jump out the top. The biggest downfall of this is they're already pretty long, so you need lots of runway for it. And you can't see the marble going down the track, which is part of the fun of the whole process. So if you have this, you can start with this and you can customize it. If you needed to cut it, you can easily cut it to any length that you want. And in fact, this can be turned into 2 half pipe tracks by cutting it in half. I won't cut that one in half in case I use it, but if you cut it straight half long ways, you're actually going to be able to see the track as it goes. And as you can see, you can cut it, make it shorter, smaller, whatever you need to do. They're very great to customize. Another good idea for a track could be old cardboard boxes from packages lying around your house. As long as they're clean enough, you can actually cut these into different parts. And even if you were going to build it with something else, these little parts could be great walls for your track as they go down the way. As you can see on my little coaster here, I've got a package little ricochet spot right there that we can go over. But you're going to find lots of things for tracks. Other things around your house that may be useful is cups. If you have paper cups lying around, this one I used as a little bit of a track starter that actually cut a hole in the bottom of it. Again, you can customize this to whatever you may have in your home. If you have pool noodles or foam noodles, something like that, you can cut that in half. Those can be wrapped around for loops, or they can be bent around for curves. Those are great. I don't have any around here. If I was going to make it out of this, it'd take me a lot of time, but I'd be able to slowly kind of cut and tape a curve around there. But I didn't quite have the wall space for it this time. But if I was going to do it in another place, maybe I would. You might even have some Hot Wheels tracks around that you could try this out with, or other toys that have ramps or that have planes or actual little tracks like a roller coaster track that you might have around. Test those things out. Obviously, you can always put it up, take it down as you go. You're going to need tape for this as well. As you can see, I've taped this to the wall. It's not going to be very fun if I have to hold it up the whole time into those places. Obviously, if I'm just testing it, great. I can hold that up and test it, see how it goes, try something else. But you're going to want to be hands-off for this, right? Because you're designing and building your wall coaster. You're not, trying to figure out how strong you are by holding it up, but it's about using your noggin so that you don't have to do that work while it's going. The marble does all that work after you've already put in the legwork. And tape is going to be really important. I have lots of different types of tape here, but obviously you're going to have different tape than I have, and you're going to have to use that to the best of your ability. Most of the tape that I taped straight to the wall is with masking tape, and masking tape is fantastic. I happen to have a lot of it around, but if you don't, there's other forms. If you have painter's tape, it's also great, and it's meant to go on the wall and to be pulled off and not damage the paint on it. So painter's tape is great. It's not as strong as masking tape, but if you're going to have something up for maybe a few days or a whole day, you're probably going to be better off with painter's tape given the choice, because the longer this masking tape is on there, the more likely it is maybe to peel off some of the paint. So just be extra careful with those things as you go. I have duct tape, and I've taped a lot of my pieces together or parts to my tracks with duct tape, but I am definitely not going to put duct tape on the wall because duct tape is super strong, right? And if it goes on something like the wall, when I try to remove this, it's going to probably pull off a little of the paint, unless I'm very, very lucky, or it could even leave some of that adhesive residue behind, and that's not something I want on my walls either. So be careful when you're doing that. If you don't have any of those specialty tapes and you just have some masking tape, this works completely fine, and I definitely recommend using anything that you can use, and just be wise about the choices that you're making for your wall. So you're going to have your sphere, you're going to have your track, you're going to have your wall, and you're going to have your tape. If you don't have a sphere, if you don't have a marble or anything like that, you can make one of those. It doesn't quite work out exactly as if you had a marble, but you don't have a marble. That's okay. I made this one out of aluminum foil just by taking a little strap and pressing it. I like aluminum foil because you can shape it a lot easier than a lot of other types of paper, and it will hold its shape a little bit better. And this one is still a little bit spiky and bouncy, but if I put it into my roller coaster, it does okay. It doesn't have enough weight, so maybe I need to put something a little bit heavier in there and then make the shape around there so that it would still have the weight to be able to really go down my course, but it also had the shape to be able to roll down my course. I'm going to show you a few tips, but this is all about experimentation, right? You're not going to be able to necessarily get it the first time you ever try something like this. It's about trying, testing it out, thinking about what happened, what went right, what went wrong, and then changing something about it. It's very rare even for adults to try something like this and get it perfect the first time, right? Every time you do something, it's practice for the next time you do it. Keep that in mind for projects like this. When you're sitting at home and you've got all of these things, you can be really stretching out your mind by just experimenting and asking a lot of questions as you do it. So when you get started, I would recommend starting at the highest point that you can reach. If you have a small step stool or something like that that you can step on to get on there, then you might have a little bit of a higher starting spot than you would normally have. But either way, you want to be able to reach the starting spot, reasonably, to get started and not have to be like on top of a couch or anything like that. Please be careful when choosing your starting spot. You can do a lot with a little bit of space. So you're going to start with your starting spot, and I like to get started with just a plain starting track. And this one you can see it's closed tubed, but I actually cut a hole inside the cup for a new starting direction, because if the hole is like this, I've got to put it in here and I don't want it to fall off the edge. So I've cut a little divot in the top, and I put this so that I can feed it straight into there. And then you're going to tape that. And when you tape this, you don't want to put tape everywhere, right? Tape does an awesome job at what it's good at, and it's good at holding things together because it's basically paper that has sticky glue already on it, right? And that sticky glue will grab a hold of any of those marbles or ping pong balls on the way down. So make sure all the tape you put on there is nice and smooth. I'm going to tape this as an example, but not to here, right to here. And you're probably going to want to tape on two places. You're going to want to tape on the top part and the underneath part. Now I'm going to use a hardest track to tape, which is a half pipe like this. So if I'm going to tape this to a wall, I'm going to pick the slope first. And the slope is just the angle from the top to the bottom. Something slight like this is going to go, this one will actually go pretty fast. You'll experiment around and notice that even a little bit of a tweak goes pretty fast down this railing here. So if I was going to pick this, I'm going to tape it. And the first tape I usually do is a holder tape. I just put half on the pipe and half on the wall. I'm apparently not Dave, I'm the wall now, so I'm going to hold that to me right there. And then, just because I know a lot of weight is going to go on here, and that one piece of tape might not be enough, I'm going to tape underneath here. And the underneath tape does something pretty cool. When you put it underneath and hold it together, it actually holds it up better rather than having it sag. So if you notice it sagging a lot, check the connection up here, but you can always hold it in the position that you'd like and put the tape to reinforce that position as you go. So you can have it right there. And as you go, test it along the way. So you put one piece and you go to the highest part, which is apparently on the side, and you can test it along the way. Then the next one, connects to this. And if you have a long straightway, sure, you can keep going in one direction, but you're using gravity along the way. You don't want to fight gravity on this. You want gravity to be your helper. So as you know, it's going to go from the highest point to the lowest point because what goes up must come down. And this is going to go down, but you're controlling the path it's going down. So a slight slope is going to travel slower with less force, and that's going to come in handy to know, okay? Because if you have this little slight thing, it's just going to drop straight down. But if it's a faster slope, its momentum is going to carry itself off a little bit further. So if you're doing something like a transfer, where, as you can see here, it's going from one direction, bounces against the bottom, and goes in another direction. If you have a really narrow place for your wall coaster, you could build it so that it's traveling this way, down. Or if you see mine, it's a little bit longer. It goes down for about 3, bounces down for another 3, and into a cup. I highly recommend, especially when you're ready to test out a full design, having something that you can catch your sphere, your marble, your ping pong ball in. It should be big enough to catch it, and it should be directed right where it ends. As you can see here, I've got a cup there, but I noticed when I tested it that it was going too fast and it would launch straight past my cup. So what I did was I took a little piece of tubing and actually taped it on the inside as a backboard. So when you're doing this and you're noticing it's going too far off or it's falling off the edge, think about it as an actual roller coaster that you were going down, or a water slide, probably more like, that you're going down, and think about, okay, well, I'm falling off the edge here, which means I need to think about the shape that I have there, and maybe even creating some walls along the way so that those passengers don't fall off. Okay? Now, as you go down this, I want you to think about this. It's going to start all the way at the top over there with something called potential energy. And the higher up and the heavier it is, the more potential energy that has. And when it falls, it's going to start to increase in acceleration and momentum and force as it goes. And as it goes, it's going to turn into something called kinetic energy. And a lot of that gets burned up from just the friction of the marble rubbing against the paper towel tube. But it's also going to be fighting that and losing a lot of energy as it goes. So when you're building with this, you're going to be getting, get this out of here. You're going to be gaining momentum in little places. Maybe if you have a quick slope, it's building up lots of momentum because it had all that potential energy, and you're putting it straight into kinetic energy and not losing it slowly along the way. So if you have a quick drop there, you can use that to your advantage. If you have loops around your house, if you've got those noodles or those tracks, you can actually have it gain enough momentum to go in a loop. Now, if you don't have those special materials, I understand, but you can use it for something like a ramp. It could be going so fast that when it hits the ramp, it goes up and over something that you'd like it to go over. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with my test run over here. I've tried it a few times. I've got it to work about 3 out of 5 times. Lots of little changes along the way. Doesn't take too long to set up, but it does take a while to add on and to get creative with it, to come up with themes for it even. If you want this to be the Jurassic Park roller coaster and you want it to be themed like a T-Rex or something like that and has to jump over its cage, that's where you can get really creative and start to add fun, silly elements in with your wall coaster like this. So are you ready? I'm going to choose my marble path over here. I might even test a few other ones to give you some examples to get started with this. But obviously, if you have these materials and you have that space, jump to it and get started whenever you have it. Here we go. Testing marble run. 3, 2, 1. Fail. Testing marble. Number 2. I noticed what happened. If you notice, I'm watching it as it goes. It goes, but right here it falls off. Now, if I had a little more time, I'd probably build a little wall here, but I just liked how you could see that run. So I'm going to tweak it just a little bit for test number 3. Ding, ding, ding. There we go. Now, just because I got it to work 1 out of 3 times, that's not so bad. And I can keep testing, I can tweak it until I can get 3 out of 3 or 10 out of 10, and then I can know that my design really made a difference there. Well, thank you for joining us at Home Experiments with Noggin Builders. If you're looking forward to some more content on Virtually Gorton, 7 p.m. tonight is the Tuesday Night Film Club, where they're discussing Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of my favorite movies. So please check out that, or you can check out nogginbuilders.com for any more insights, any more experiments. Check out our Facebook page. Until then, everyone be well, be safe, be kind to each other. Bye-bye, Gorton Center people. Bye-bye.